Welcome, everybody. This is the Type Thursday Book Club. I'm here with the Type Thursday chapter leads of Phoenix and Los Angeles, Michael Mondragon and Matheo Cadena. I'm Thomas Jockin. I'm the founder of Type Thursday. And this week we are reviewing Ken Barber's lettering manual. Ken Barber is a lettering artist, well known at House Industries. And this week we are reviewing his publicated book, Lettering Manual. So as we said, our hosts are three professional experts who've been in the field for all of us over 10 years at this point. Very excited to have, what we do is that we do a blind review. We all read the book privately, and now we're coming together to reveal our ratings of what we read so far. But before we begin, what is Type Thursday? Type Thursday is a meeting place for people who love type. We have meetups in chapters around the world. Currently in Los Angeles and Phoenix right now. And so I hope you come join us our next physical event. All right, so this week, as we said, we are doing Ken Barber's lettering manual at the Type Thursday Book Club. And a reminder, what is our rubrics? Our rubric is on 5 criteria: clarity of concepts, visual inspiration, practical application, typographic insight, and lastly, overall impact. We'll be reviewing those on a 5-star rating system. And we'll find out if we all agree, we disagree, we think the work is great, we think the work is lacking. We'll find out. If you've read the book, please put your comments in if you agree with our assessments. If you haven't read the book, all good. Hang out with us, learn more about it, and maybe if you think it's worth your time, you can go check it out. Go rent it, take it out of the library. It'd be a good idea. So with that said, shall we move on over to the slide deck?
Let's do it.
All right. So our first criteria is clarity of concepts. How clear are the ideas and how the argument's been explained? This week, we're going to rotate our reporting or discussions of our ratings. We'll start with Michael, then Matteo, and then I'll come in last.
Great. Well, let me just say that first of all, I am super excited about this book. I've been a House Industries fan for a long time, and I was trying not to let that skew me. I definitely want to approach this from a neutral position, and but I have to say it was very difficult. But I'm super excited about this. So the clarity of concepts. I'm going to rate this, and I think that I moved the wrong thing. I need to move my head here. Oh my goodness. We may have to move on because there we go. Gosh, I'm going to do 4 out of 5 right here. This Figma thing, I have no idea why I have an arrow in my head. I think of Steve Martin. That's a very old reference. So the clarity of concept. So this book has the fundamentals of lettering, structure, spacing. The one thing that it does assume is that you have some sort of design background. So if you don't have one, it may be one of those books where you might see it a little bit differently if you have a professional background or have some time with it. But I think the clarity of concepts is high, but that is one of the weaknesses that it did have. But it does, the emphasis on craft and tradition is evident. And again, I probably have bought more merchandise and fonts from this company. They've been a company that I've followed for quite a long time. So, but 4 out of 5 for me.
Matteo?
Yeah. I, first of all, just absolutely love the design of this book. It's hard to tell, but once you have it in your hands, you can see and feel that there is a texture of the book. And inside, they've done, I think, a wonderful job. Ken Barber did a really great job sort of giving us a breakdown of all the different concepts that he explained and introduced. And I felt it was done very clearly and without being too verbose. And he didn't really feel redundant in any ways. So for me, I'm landing myself. Oh, 1 second here. I'm getting into the Figma. Right in on a 5. I really love this book, you guys. I thought Ken Barber did an awesome job, and House Industries has some really cool work that got me super inspired. So the concepts here, yeah, it was good.
Yeah. I think especially for me, the book generally moves in a systematic excuse me, from a really systematic approach from part 1 to part 3, building on concepts, use cases, and exercises for deliberate progression. I think that's actually really intelligent and thoughtful approach Ken chose for presenting this book. If you notice, actually in all the sections, he also, he goes over his concepts, he gives you demonstrations about it, and then he gives you exercises to actually do. I think in terms of the clarity of the concept, that threefold technique is incredibly strong pedagogy. I think it's really smart because it's one thing to be told what to do, but it's a whole other thing to be given a whole mode of way to practice it. I think especially, I do have some critiques in some of the ordering of things. I think some things are, similar to, we'll talk more about in the discussion section. I do think there's a little bit of an expertise bias that's causing this to be a little more dense for absolute beginners. But I feel like all the areas, when I was comparing this to Golden Secrets, that Golden Secrets rushed to kind of move through really quickly. Ken did spend the time to clarify, which I thought that was really nicely done. I think things related to anatomy, typographic genres, and the logics of construction, I think areas that I felt like Golden Secrets kind of rushed because they had no choice. They had to compress it because of how to get covered. I felt like this book covered those areas really well. It didn't have a sacrifice of compression based on that. I think especially I really appreciated Barber's particular understanding of volumetric understanding of letter forms. It's a slightly different account from the Royal Academy, the stroke logic. He does talk about that, and it is in there. It's a little cursory, a little quick about it, but it's there. But you can tell his main way of thinking about letters are these volumes and these masses that you cut into and take away from. I think that's a very intelligent way to think about it. And I think it's important to have different accounts of how to approach or discipline. I think he does that very well. So with that said, I think this is a solid 5. I think while I do have concerns about some of its expertise bias, I do feel like its overall pedagogical structure and formatting, I think it's just robust enough that if you go through this process, even if you are a beginner, you will get a lot of insight, especially I think the exercise part especially, I was very impressed by.
Yeah, I love that. And I've been enamored with letter forms for so long. And we actually spoke about this at our last Type Thursday event. There was a young designer that was building his own typeface for a project. And a lot of the kind of retro look that he was trying to, or that he was inspired by and was trying to develop, House Industries has been doing it for decades. And it goes back to, I remember when I did like a Planet of the Apes, they did a whole font or typeface called Simeon. And it was everything that I was trying to do at the time. I loved it so much. And it was one of those moments where I was actually mad that they released it. I'm going, this is better than anything I could have seen. So again, just learning how to do that and what the qualities are that they look for and that they are trying to do was really, really eye-opening.
Yeah. By the way, to jump in, I want to be concrete about what I meant by these exercises. It's on page 28. It's the lettering mashup. I think this is phenomenal. This is the kind of stuff I train my students in at the higher level, but with the critique, I think this is too early. Like, I think its placement's too early in the book. Yeah, I think Mateo's already jumped. I was going to do the same thing. I was going to do the whole bring it to the camera move right here. But yeah, Mateo's got better shots, so let him do it.
Yeah, that's
but then
so cool.
So what's going on there for those who don't have the book? what can, and this is a good technique, is that what you do as a lettering artist is that you can take two genres and you put them together. You got a handwriting typeface or font, and then you have a slab serif. And then you ask the question, what happens what happens if you combine them two together? That's a very sophisticated approach of thinking, you know, because you need to think about the anatomy and the logic and which approaches you take on. The balancing baseline, for example, or the rounded terminals, the bracketing. So again, this is really going through those exercises is really, really good. That's how you're actually going to understand the concepts. But I will say, I didn't know when I was looking, I was like, wait, this is way too early. This is the stuff you got to do later in the book. This is too early, in my opinion. I think it's too advanced for too early, in my opinion. But I do think I think that's an example of the kind of exercises I was talking about that I find is very, I think more design books should do that. You can't just, it's one thing to have people talk to you about the concepts. You got to do it yourself. It's like the gym. It's like looking at a workout video versus doing the workout. It's the same. I find it's the same mechanism. Mm-hmm. You're not getting fit by watching a video of someone working out.
Thomas just deflated my entire workout routine.
What are your thoughts, Matheo?
No, Thomas, I agree with you so much. I did feel like he's assuming a lot of technical background and knowledge, right? So this may not be as approachable for the beginner, but intermediate or someone who's at least learned like probably 6 months, a year of learning, you could pick this book up and start to interpret it. If this is the first book you pick up, it could be challenging because there's going to be a lot of information all at once thrown at you. And you've got to have a baseline of design principles to be able to really kind of digest this and get inspired by it. But the clarity, I think what maybe, a lot of the issues that I had with Alan Peters' Logos at Last, the lack of clarity, the lack of depth, I felt like Ken Barber did a wonderful job at giving us more clear explanations of the concepts while keeping it brief too. So it was never like a ramble, which was great.
Michael, any last words before we move on ahead?
No, let's move on to the next one.
Sir, the floor is yours.
Okay. I'm trying to do two things at once right here. So we're on visual inspiration. I mean, this is where this book truly shines. I'd be remiss if I gave it anything lower than a 5. It's one of, House Industries is like one of those just brands that just really nailed everything that I was trying to do as a branding designer. And the great thing about it is it also brought in a lot of history as well. And a lot of the things that I found out that I loved about, lettering was, making something timeless, making something of the period. And, when you say tiki look, we can visualize it as artists, what that looks like, but in a typeface, to make that and then make other typefaces off of that and just keep on going and going and going. And then they had a crew of designers that were all kind of very like-minded. And it gave me so much visual inspiration to be better at my craft and refine my letter forms to be more like that. So I again, and also, the fact that they also made a lot of, the surprise things, the pictures, that you would have to buy the fonts to get those. And they were such little Easter eggs when you got them. So it got me more into what fonts and typefaces could be.
Nice, Michael. For me, the visual inspiration, strength, and originality, this book hits. Okay, I'm going to show you a spread, one of my favorite spreads in this book. Ken Barber just being clever as heck. When we first look at this, it was kind of hard for me to see, but it's, the power of observation. And every element from the flames that make up the word the power that wraps and embellishes this thing to the I with the of, and then observation. Every element is made of typography, but also looks like it could be a piece of art, So we've got that piece of visual inspiration. We have a ton of spreads that give us visual references to the concepts that he's talking about. And so I never feel like we're just getting a wall of text without getting some visuals that help us interpret and understand what is he describing here, right? So he does an excellent job at that. And I also felt like the visual inspiration was really strong as far as like layout, because I felt like the previous books we read, Martina Floor's Golden Secrets of Lettering and Alan Peters' Logos at Last, the layouts didn't really blow us away because they were the same every page. This one, he plays with the layouts pretty uniquely and has a lot of fun with it, you know, especially the glossary in the back, or the index and glossary in the back. So when I opened this, I was so excited. I smiled. I got just like a little kid. I got giddy. And so for me, the visual inspiration landed right smack at a 5 for this book because of the fun ways that Ken Barber played with bringing design and visuals together with the text. So it was all. I felt like this was thought through very well.
Yeah, I mean, as a thing, I don't think anyone's going to say this is not a 5 level visual inspiration. I think both in terms of its production quality, there's such attention to detail, like that kind of almost like and it is really true. You can't tell from the video or photograph of it, like this textured material of it's almost like crocodile skin. Like that's not actually what it is, but it has this very textured, and it's actually, if you notice, look closely, it's not even it's like an organic, like almost like a crocodile leather, like a like a pleather kind of effect. There's foils on the cover and the inside front and back cover. So we got a foil on this thing. You know, it's a very constrained color palette, but with spots of 4 color, right? It's generally this kind of orange, like kind of this yellow mustard with black and white, very restrained color palette. There's like color photography supplementing it, but very restrained. I do agree that in general, it has a lot of the hand-drawn qualities that we saw in Golden Secrets as well. So I think it adds a lot of analog kind of quality to it. I mean, also Ken's known for that. Like his whole marketing move online has been, let me show you this really awesome pencil sketch that looks exactly like a font was made, because he's that good at he's so good at it. And actually, by the way, Andy Cruz, his colleague at House Industry, made a comment about that in the forward. He made a comment. It's like, oh yeah, Ken's the kind of guy, like he does, like my sketches are absolute trash. I'm paraphrasing, or just absolute scribbles, while Ken does a sketch and it looks like a perfectly rendered letter form. Right. So that's what Ken's known for that. And this book delivers those concepts and points. There's even like little details you can even tell, like for example, these little binder folders method to talk about my camera's out of focus, unfortunately, so we can't see. Or probably my blur function is doing that. Anyways, there's like this really analog. Yeah, here. Yeah, there you go. Thank you, Matteo. If you look again, you can't tell from far away, but if you look closely, the edges are not perfectly vector. They're actually analog. There's a real attention to crispness, like a really attention to detail.
Oh, you're right. Now I can see it. Yeah, there's a fuzziness.
Yeah, the edge quality is like it's analog based. So
it's clever.
And immense amount of attention to detail on the production. You know, so honestly, if you're interested in learning how to do publication design really well, editorial design really well, and actually for a reason Matteo pointed out, for different kinds of scale, emphasis, I call it volume, right? So, and my students get confused. I call it like a volume and a knob. Sometimes you need a dramatic. You got to take it to 11, like the glossy page, for example. Like you need contrast of experience of reading versus a monotonous kind of like constant same content. Excellent editorial design has awareness of that, which this book absolutely does, which is really interesting because it's like not even about the lettering necessarily, because I didn't even talk about that yet. I'm just talking about just the straight up design of the book and the materiality of the book. It's a great educational lesson for designers to see what a really well considered production piece looks like, with this kind of like all this consideration of production and technique of presentation. That's just on that side, let alone the case studies. And just like Ken Barber is one of the best in the game, you know, it's just you can't, a contemporary lettering artist, there's not that many above Ken's level, if any. And you can see that in the work. It's just, again, it's a real confident and professional presentation that really establishes authority of Ken to demonstrate what he knows what he's talking about, but never does it in a way that's overwhelming. And I think this book makes the process very approachable. You know, I think with the most degree, I do think sometimes like the performativity of the sketch paper gets a little heavy-handed sometimes. But the very fact that I think Andy Cruz actually says point blank, this is what he is. Like, this is just how he works. He's that good at work. I took a class with him and actually would agree. I have seen him sketch in person. He does sketch like this in person. So it's not just performativity just for the sake of the algorithm. Like he really does render work this way. But you really see the thinking, not just the results. And I think in his design and all the way through the whole design process, not just even the lettering side, but just on the editorial layout side. So outstanding, I think, overall.
Yeah, the early 2000s, I would buy all the fonts, and because of that, I was on the mailing list, so I would get all their mailers too, and even their catalogs like were meticulously designed. A lot of spot UVs, and it was almost like getting, if you remember French paper, the Charles Anderson type of stuff. And it was the use of the actual materials like went with it. I mean, it was a cohesion of really great printed things that really.
Not to interrupt you, Michael, but do you remember? I mean, us uncles over here.
Yeah.
What was that Canadian foundry / design organization? It was Canadians. I'm blanking on their names. They did some creative.
It wasn't CSA. It was something like that. Remember Charles Anderson being a part of something. But it was like, it was a foundry like of fonts.
Yeah, like they sold fonts.
Ah,
my mind is blanking. What? It's not underwear.
The only other one I could think of is like T26, but that was out of Chicago. That was a big one at the time.
Oh, it's bothering me. But basically, the early that 2000s, 1990s time period had a lot. It was like this great enthusiasm in production. Like there was like a sense of enthusiasm and like people just doing stuff that was very exuberant. That's why I'm thinking about this.
Yeah. Again, if we're making a push to bring back all these analog things, like, you know, it doesn't have to be all digital. I mean, I got excited about that cover as well. So when I got it, and they do that with other books too. So,
yeah, Matheo, are we going to move on to the next one?
Yeah, just to riff off of like the sketching, like you could see this Hermes logo that he designed from sketch to execution, and like, oh my God, just absolutely beautiful. Like the quality in the sketch and the ideation, and then it coming to life as the final logo form. Just wow, you know, that visually just blew my mind to see him be able to go from that to that, you know,
and the experimentation.
Yeah. The fact that he made a horse out of the letter forms, and it reads both as the horse and as Hermes. I'm like, whew, yeah, hats off. Great.
All right, so we're at practical application, and I'm going to give this. If I can go back to there, we go. I'm going to give this maybe a little bit more than a 4 on this one. And, you know, this is where the insights about lettering are developed in a professional studio setting. And it's not a strict step-by-step workbook, but, you know, it has examples. And I appreciated it because, like, you know, when I'm trying to address these things, like, how am I practically going to use these in my branding designs, in any of like my, you know, even font usage of things that I'm going to use in my my projects as well. It gave me a lot of these, and again, but you know, despite the title that it's a manual, it's more a philosophy and process guide, I felt. So that's the only reason I didn't give it a 5. But again, I mean, every time I look at this book, like more and more, it's like there's something more to fall in love with every time I flip through it.
Michael, you said that so well, and I was so close to like ranking this book. I felt like a perfect, but then I got to chapter 3, and it was again the promise is, I'm going to give you a manual. I'm going to give you step by step. I'm going to show you how we do what we do. And what ends up happening is some really great and fun stuff, like
Yeah.
Helpful hints.
Absolutely hilarious spread right there, with the helpful hints and him pointing the pencil through. And these are a bunch of tips, don't savagely imitate models, hoard your sketches, don't draw too large. So I think you summarized it really well, Michael, that it's more of a practical guide and philosophy to approaching design. And he even says in the book himself, like, nothing will replace a good mentor. And that's the case here. Is it's kind of like, well, I was hoping this manual would give me some step-by-step that could help me, and a mentor, but I got a philosophy, which is still really helpful. And there's a spread that I appreciate where he goes into depth with digitizing the letter forms and talking about the Bezier curves, talking about the handles, and giving you some pro tips that you would not have had otherwise when you're working with the pen tool, like simplifying things down, not using too many points, don't overlap the handles, and don't let the handles kind of clash. So those were practical and helpful. But the overall is, again, like what happened with Alan Peters, is like this, I'm going to show you the full process beginning to end, step by step, and then it not happening, like it being hinted at, but it not happening. So that landed me right about at a 4 for my rating here.
Yeah. I think in general, for me, the main note, because I took a class with Ken. So I think for me, I'm putting that in that context of like, as an instruction guide, I do think I think it is a philosophy text. I think that's actually really good. I think that's a really good, appropriate understanding about it, as opposed to just a manual that is just systematically going to walk you through a procedural process. I don't think that's the intention of the book. So thus, maybe that name is a little awkward or not the right, may cause a misunderstanding. But if you come in more as a text of capturing Ken's philosophy and approach of lettering, it knows that it does know what it wants to do, and it teaches it with a real professional discipline. So honestly, if you can't take one of Ken's workshops in New York City, usually teaches at the Cooper Union, at Type A Cooper, where I took him. This is the next best thing. I think it translates to a really, again, it's not going to be a straight up curriculum like a weekly sequence, but it gives you the overall thinking Ken would work with you if you took a workshop with him. So for those reasons, I think it's really practical if you want to learn how Ken Barber would think about lettering. Is it exactly 1-to-1? No, because also even any designer knows that it's never a formulaic process. There's always variations, there's always exceptions, and there's always things you have to weigh differently based on the circumstances. So as a result, for me, I do put it out of 5, because I think because of its fact that you can keep coming back to it and there's a lot of insight. And basically, when Ken passes away, this is going to be the Ken that captures his insights of thinking about lettering that will inspire other people, I think, to continue doing this in the future. So those are my reasonings.
Yeah, that's a great point. I actually, the fact that you got to take a class with him is great, because I think I even remember that they might have been the first ones that I ever saw doing lettering classes, or it got me to know that is even a thing, and then I remember doing in Los Angeles doing studio tours. But my goal was always like, oh my gosh, like how I would have to go to Delaware. But I would have easily done it had I taken a studio tour of House Industries. But you're right. It is a legacy publication where, how did they make all these things? What were their philosophies? Like, what were their considerations for their studio? So you're absolutely right on that. I totally agree.
Matheo?
No, Thomas, I was just thinking right now, the fact that you said this is a book that you can go back to, and I totally agree with that. It's absolutely a wonderful reference manual, the source material that you can definitely go back to. You can use it in education. You can use it to guide yourself. I feel like you could use it to teach others, and it's a great piece to have in your library. So yeah, practical application. It is still good, but yeah, as a manual, I was kind of like, again, expecting a little bit more step by step. And in the opening paragraphs and the opening pages, he does say, I'm going to show you step by step the sauce, the magic. And then it's just like, oh, yeah. Nope,
Yeah, I feel like it's always the publishers. I think the publishers I feel like the publishers push the authors, the designers to talk that way, because we saw the same thing with the Alan Peters book. Because they want to sell it, they want to market it very particularly to be to give you a systematic guide where it's super clear. You get from point A to point Z, super clear, no ambiguity. I feel like it's the publishers and editors who push that, you know. But I won't disagree that, like, I think, and then that's like setting the expectation that's not fair, because then people get upset. Well, wait a minute, I thought this was going to give me my walkthrough, versus being told the truth. Like, guess what? Design's really messy. It's incredibly ambiguous. And any rule I'll give you, I can give you also 3 different exceptions to that rule. So then what? Is there no rule? There is a rule, but it's just there's a weighing, there's a judgment. So I think especially in a post-AI world, it's that judgment, baby. That's what we need. We need judgment. It's just if it could be so streamlined, it would be an algorithm. And if it's an algorithm, then an AI can do that, no problem.
Yeah.
I did my taxes. I did my tax with ChatGPT this year. I got it done in 1 hour. It used to be a whole weekend process. And we got done in 1 hour because ChatGPT is that good. But the problem with using AI for design is it's weighing. You have to weigh and make judgments. And this is what this book does give you. It gives you a portfolio or like an assortment of criteria and methods of judgment. And I think considerations for judgment. Which ones you still got to apply them, which again, this is what you need: discernment. You need mentorship. You need friends. You need colleagues to check up on you on your work. But as a book, as a collection to capture Ken's considerations, how he makes judgments and decisions as a lettering artist and designer, I think it's very valid. Let alone the exemplar of what does great work look like. We learn a lot by examples too, right?
Yeah, and this isn't their first book. I mean, they've had many books up to this point. So, yeah, that's a really interesting take. I never even considered it any of those things. Yeah, should we move on?
Yeah,
we're gonna move on to typographic insight. So, I mean, this one is slam dunk for me. I'm just gonna put it. Can I put it a little bit over a little bit?
It will count as a 5 still, but yeah, understood.
Understood.
Yeah, it's. I mean, not only and I didn't consider this at the beginning as well, that a lot of my influences came from when I first. Well, let me back up. When I first started as a designer, I was straight out of high school, and really the only thing that I could do well was sign paint. And that's where when I started at, it was a place called Zia Records. It was a music, it was a new and used CD, music place. And they also had vinyl and tapes and stuff like that. But I started as a sign painter, and there's a lot of sign painting roots in a lot of these house industries. Anything that they do, it's based on pinstriping. It's based on sign painting. A lot of the things that were practically done back in the 40s, 50s, 60s. There's a huge influence here. So, I mean, but it also makes it contemporary too. I mean, they draw from those influences and then make them modern, and then they become timeless. So that's where I feel like this totally excels, and every letter is just so good. And that's why I fell in love with house industries as a whole.
Wow, Michael, you're hitting the nail on the head for this, because when I was going through this book, again, the spreads are beautiful. There's variation, and just look at this beautiful typographic, layout, talking about all these little pro tips. And there's another page here, like just different concepts that we need to see visually. He breaks down so well, and typographically, I think really gets into the nitty gritty of breaking down each modular aspect, so that we understand that not just the word, but the concept more fully. So for me, yeah, the typographic insight, I was feeling like he hit it strong, like 5 out of 5 on typographic insight. I'll bump this over here. Boom.
Yeah, it's not going to be a surprise that I'm just not going to give any suspense. Like clearly a 5. It's not even debatable. So I think it's generally a refined synthesis of contemporary lettering discourse. To be fair, there is a lot. He's very aware of his tradition. He makes it very known. He calls from historical sources, and there are historic. And listen, the information is about the same. Like most of our discourse is gathered around the same concepts for the last 50 years, I would say. Maybe 30 years if you want to be a little stricter about it. It's not like Ken innovate, like his actual his innovation in terms of knowledge is actually relatively small, but it's important. It's a specific talk about volumetric sketching of letter forms. I think that's his most unique contribution. But everything else is a really good survey. So it's the kind of thing where, in terms of his information, again, it's a really great gathering of a lot of other resources. And just like, Golden Secrets, there's a bibliography, and he does tell you your sources. So you can go to those too for the primary sources that he's pulling from. But he does but I find in contrast to Golden Letters, he's even more systematic of his synthesis. So it's actually, I think, a better one-stop shop. If you ask me the question, Golden Rules, lettering manual, which one am I doing? Which one am I recommending for people to pick up? If you had to pick one, lettering manual, hands down. I think it is a more systematic synthesis of not even just letter form logic and construction and systems thinking in terms of the last 30 years about the discipline. But I think in particular, his demonstration of his work is also it's just a much broader. The main liability of Golden Secrets was that if you notice the main projects being shown, whereas the cover being worked through. And it's something that is useful pedagogical training. But it is only one project, and that was the main one you saw go through the whole book. Versus Ken's showing you everything in that, like it's basically the mixture of the portfolio with the insights and demonstrations and demos. Like it really it's a tour de force of typographic demonstration. I think parts 1 and part 2 especially are super systematic. Like there's a lot of great insight, very systematic. Part 3, you could almost argue, doesn't even need to be in the book, technically. But I very much appreciate it. Its thoroughness is great. I do think it kind of moves a little quick because I think partly because they accept, like, it's kind of acknowledged that this is information you can get elsewhere too, which does, I think, again, that's the one limitation, is that if I give this to a beginner, so just read this one book, they're probably gonna get a little like, whoa, what's going on in part 3? This was kind of being systematic, and I can kind of hang in there. And now I got the part 3, and now I'm just blasted with effectively the directory of the type schemas of every single type logic and how they're constructed and everything, with not much hand holding about it. It's almost like when a professor gets impatient at the end of his lecture. It's like, all right, I went through enough. I hand held you enough. Now I need to get going because now I'm getting bored talking about this.
Right.
Okay. So it's slightly compressed. So and I say that because compared to the early foundation exercises and assignments, you didn't see that. And actually, that's partly why I thought the mashup. I actually thought that's why I said I think the mashup lettering exercise should have been in part 3, because that's where you would actually use it. Because they'd be like, well, wait a minute, I'm looking at, I don't know, Scotch Roman, and I want to compare it with like a copper plate cursive. What would be a mashup of the two? See, that's a really interesting challenge. That's where I would expect someone to do that. I almost feel like you have to go to part 3 to even understand what that mashup exercise is asking you to do. You got to go to part 3 to understand which genres or anatomies you're looking at. anyways.
Right.
So with that said, again, it's not affecting his, I think, the insights of possible. I'm just simply, it's so good. I'm just saying, like, what I think is just its limitation. But even with these critiques, I do think it operates at such a sophisticated level, especially in parts 1 and 2. I think just you're going to get a lot of insights from this. So under this rubric, it's fantastic. It's a 5 out of me.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Totally agree. Totally agree. So are we on to overall impact as our last?
Woo!
Yes. So again, I can't put this over enough. And it's a 5 for me. Again, I'm a fan, but I'm also I feel that this is a tribute to traditional lettering as a craft and also practical inspiration for modern designers. So I think that if you just happen to stumble across this book, even if you're a graphic designer, like, you're going to get a lot of inspiration from it. But if you're especially a lettering designer, if you're into typography like we all are, this is one of those books that it's a must-have in your collection. And so overall impact for me, it's undeniable. 5, definitely a 5.
Nicely said, Michael. I am so with you on all that. I think, like, there's just so many lovely spreads in the book that got me excited about being a designer, and the fact that he works in, like, just the tools of the the broad nib tools, and then he also gives you these visuals of what the different nibs will result in with different application, right? So different tool gives you a different output. He also talks through his personal favorite tools, and he doesn't get fancy, and he likes to point out that, like, a lot of students, a lot of designers are trying to spend money on a tool, but the thing is, he's like, it's just tracing paper and pencil and marker. You don't need anything crazy. And he also says, I'm not going to tell you about the computer I use or the software I use because it might be outdated. I'm going to tell you about the tool. You can do a lot if you learn your tools, and he does, and he showcases that, right? So the impact builds because of, I feel like, the relevance of the tools he references, and the guide. It's like a field guide, right, that you can reference. Okay. Also the index. Oh, look at this index. It's so beautifully done. Like, that's the best index design I've ever seen in a book. Usually the index is the most boring part and you just don't even look at it. His index and his glossary are so fun. And okay, best piece at the end, he gives you this field guide of, like, here's the books you should pick up next. Like, if you want to go deeper into the topics, here's all the things, here's all the books. He's very comedic in his approach, which I loved. So the influence and the impact is, I think, really strong on the industry because he's referencing a ton of different materials that you can then go continue to study. He's referencing the tools, and he's also tried to make it timeless. So yeah, I'm going to throw in my score right now. Let's get here. Overall impact, obviously landing in at a 5. So I'm going to pop it right there. Boom.
Yeah, it's funny. So my take is a little more damper compared to you guys. Only I'll say this. So with a really important caveat, listen, lettering and Michael brought it up. I mean, the thought of taking lettering workshops wasn't really that common before Ken. Wasn't very common. There were a couple others in New York doing lettering exercises, like lettering exercises or workshops did exist. But it's not that common. It really was only in New York. You got it. It was possible, really. So with that said, lettering is a hybrid of illustration typography, really as a discipline, came up in the 90s, 2000s. Like this is what people are known for. Like the Jessica Hisches, the Ken Barbers, right? Martina Fleur, like that kind of stuff. Like that, it really is of a certain period. And then like also Louis Philippe, for example, or underwear. I brought them up before. They're a Netherlands Dutch foundry. Yes. So with that said, what lettering manual does, it doesn't redefine a movement. It consolidates and codifies it. It will be, and this text will be used in the future as for those purposes. Now, it's less disruption than affirmative. It's a testament to how central Barber's generation has been to the field. So for those reasons, even so, I put some points off because of the fact it's not going to be a tech, like this is not a text that's transforming the industry, but it's certainly a crystallization of an industry, of a certain kind of way of working. So for those reasons, I did give it a 4 for that, only for that reason of lack of disruption. But for insight and perspective and consolidation of the discipline and craft of this time period, I couldn't ask for a better text for that purpose.
Yeah, that was a very valid point. Again, we're going back to like you know, it took me this book and this discussion to realize, like, oh my gosh, like, you know, like lettering or learning it, like, where would you learn this beforehand? And I remember, I think I told Matheo this like many times. I actually walked up to someone who was doing painting on like the window lettering, and I asked him, I said, like, how do you learn this? And he goes, you just do it. And I go, okay, there you go. So, I mean, that's literally in the 80s and 90s. That's, you had to get like a crabby lettering designer. Like, I didn't even know where to find him again. I just walked away. But learning it as a craft and then even like transferring it to computers, that was actually a chore. But I got excited when I saw it, and that there was more opportunities to learn this. So. But yeah, absolutely. I totally agree with both the points that you both have made here.
Yeah, Thomas, I agree with you that it probably sits right at a 4 because it's not disrupting the industry. It is crystallizing this era. And I think Ken Barber, he's a rock star. You know, he even references metal, which reminded me a lot of Michael, because Michael, you always said like you got inspiration from, you know, the rock magazines, Thrasher and punk rock culture. And he references that a lot in the Mad TV magazine. I remember seeing those I think in my public library where I grew up. I mean, I grew up in New Hampshire, and that I spent a lot of time in the library, and I just loved not just to read the books, but like to explore the cover arts of all the books and magazines and the design. Like I would just get lost in like the way things were laid out and designed. And yeah. And I think he does a great job encapsulating this era. So well said, Thomas.
Thank you.
Awesome.
As we transition to the wild card moment, any last reflections on the book?
I mean, only thing I can say is just find it and get it. You will not be let down, especially again, even if you're just a casual fan of design. I mean, this is just a beautiful book. Also, it's really interesting too, because there's a lot of like, you know, like there's the Jimmy Kimmel logo. I'll just use that as a reference. Like people don't even think about like who designed that. And as soon as they had, I remember. Weirdly, I actually went to a taping of Jimmy Kimmel, and they had that logo up there, and I knew exactly who did it. Like I go, oh my god! Like House Industries did their logo. Like I knew it right off. But that's because again, I'm a fanboy.
You know, when it comes to books, there's books that you could basically go to the library, get it, and then read it, and then return it back, right? Like where you're not going to come back to it. Like you're going to get the hit. You're like, that's cool. You kind of put it in the database, and then you get out. I mean, yeah, I see Andrea on the chat. And by the way, we have a chat. I mean, we've been following. So thank you for those who've been in the chat. Andrea said in the chat, easy buy. This is it. And I'll tell you also why. Listen, Ken Barber's classes were $600 for a weekend. $600 for a weekend, $25 for a book. Gee whiz. I wonder which one is in terms of how to get into the field, or like how to learn this stuff. If you can't afford to get to fly to New York and take a workshop with Ken, this is an easy buy. It's not even a question.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's Thomas. You said exactly what I was going to say. When I looked at the price on the back, and you see that it's only $25, and it's just $25. This is the most bang for your buck you're going to get out of a design book. There have been books that our schools, our universities force us to buy, $100 plus, and we never go back to them, sadly. Yeah. So this for $25, it's one that you're going to reference a lot. And the Jimmy Kimmel spread, oh my God, just so beautiful. Just so many good references inside the Jimmy Kimmel as they were exploring that brand identity for him. I've seen the logo many times. I've always loved the logo. I didn't quite know why I loved the logo, but now learning that it was House Industries, and now I see why, because there's so much love for the craft behind the logo and the identity system. There's so much that goes into this. So absolutely, yeah. Wow, this has been an amazing book to read.
Well said. So as we're transitioning, this is a general reminder, everybody, that did you know over 90% of people who watch this on YouTube are not subscribed to our channel on Type Thursday Global? I think you need to be, if you haven't done so yet and you're enjoying these book clubs, I think you need to subscribe to our YouTube channel at Type Thursday Global. Yeah. So as we're transitioning, yes, like and subscribe, please.
All right, let's do it. Let's spin the wheel.
Every time you like and subscribe, a serif gets a little serif. Serif gets its wings.
Every serif gets a spur. If you're going,
there you go. Yeah. Ooh.
Oh, if this book were a poster, what one word would be in bold?
Okay. So I start out, correct?
Sure. Yes.
So if it was one word, it would be craft. And, it celebrates discipline, patience, but also tradition. So, lettering for me, it's nostalgic. It's also, again, I love baseball lettering, and a lot of that is, through history. They also change it so you can actually visually understand what era, the teams have as well. They also do that with uniforms and also the lettering on the hats, and now the some minor league baseball teams will actually brand for specific games, and they'll bring back historical traditions. So that is, I figure if craft is the first word that comes to mind for that for me, and that's what House Industries is built on, in my opinion.
Oof. Michael, that one's hard to follow. I was imagining, based on this prompt, that the book cover, if it was going to be turned into a poster, and we just used lettering manual Ken Barber, the word lettering would be in bold, and then manual would be super tiny. like manual can just recede to the background, because lettering is really all this book is about, and craft. You said it very well. I think that was beautifully put, Michael. This very done. Beautiful exploration of the craft of lettering. So that would be my one bold word.
So my shortcut, get my workaround on this, on the demand that has to be the text from the cover, from the book. Dean say we couldn't do the back cover, and the back cover has draw, in big I just draw those dang letters. Draw letters the House Industries way. Just draw. Just take that one word, draw, put it on the table. Mostly because again, it's slightly performative nowadays, but when the performative move of look how great my sketches are, my fine pencil details, and it wasn't Ken that did this. There were lots of other designers who do this. They put the perfectly curated desk with the perfectly placed sketchbook with the notepad. And I'm like, man, come on, man. No design really works that way. We're slow. I don't know about you guys, but I have papers all over the place. I got notepads, I got sticky notes. This is not this curated Instagram post, So I'm not putting hate on Ken, but he is known for his imagery of sketching. And it's right there. I mean, it's on, it's pretty much, you jump in, literally it's the second page and contents. Again, auto blurs on, so you guys can't see. But on the contents page is verso side. Draw with letter. It's basically you can even tell I actually kind of like that. You can actually tell like the texture of the papers in there. They didn't just obliterate it, edit it out. Like you can tell it's like there's valuation, like the paper's been crinkled. So I kind of appreciate that. It's actually I'm a little surprised considering how polished everything else is that they chose to keep that in there. But with that said, the poster should be draw, all caps, exclamation mark.
Great.
Or draw those letters.
All caps, exclamation mark, not the sim.
Yeah, I shared a post. I think Disney posted something. It's like Disney Archives, and there was a woman who was literally using that same kind of format to draw like It's a Small World, like all the characters, and just layering things over. And it was and I put on there, I go, this is a gentle reminder of what it takes to be an artist. Like, and she said it, like, drawing is like, what an artist should be doing all the time. And I totally agree with that. And I always shudder whenever I hear modern designers brag almost that they can't draw. And I don't think it's a bragging point. Because that's how an artist thinks. Literally, sketching is thinking the way an artist thinks. So this book is absolutely a tribute to sketching and drawing and what it can be, what you can make out of that.
Wow. Beautifully said, Michael. I love that so much. Because for me, drawing was what I was doing at such a young age. I would get worksheets that I couldn't complete in school because I wasn't sharp in math, and so I would just draw and sketch on like in the margins or on anywhere there's a blank page with or blank space, and I'd just be drawing. And that's how I think even to this day. Like, if the first thing I do if I have a design problem, it's to sketch first. So I love that. It's the way designers and creatives think.
Yeah. And Andrea, sketching stick figures do count. So
it does. Absolutely does.
Stick figures count. I think it's because of the neural pathways that you activate. Like, if you're at a computer clicking away versus if you're using your hands to sketch something, even a stick figure, you're activating different neural pathways. There's also a meditative quality to it. So
What I also tell my students sometimes, I do this too. Sometimes I work digitally and then print it out and then use tracing papers on top the digital printout. That's perfectly legitimate mode. You need that feedback mechanism. Sometimes the modality doesn't have to be purely from straight from paper on the pencil to paper. You can print something out and then render with it. I think that's also another method I wish students thought more about. Like, you don't have to stay on the screen the whole time. You can just it's basically the same logic. You take the basic letter form, you print it out, and then you think about what would happen if I extend this? What happens if I cut this off? What happens if I put these two parts together? Sometimes it's faster just to get the base things out and then digitize, print it out, and then use tracing papers and other techniques to manipulate them in the ways to think through them. So those are good points.
Yep. And there's another technique that I was telling a student yesterday. He was asking me about how did I make banners back in how did I paint banners? I made this Alice in Chains thing for an in-store we were doing. And I had to think back, and I was like, oh my gosh, I used to take the logo and I would draw it, and then I would project it on the banner and then pencil it in and then paint it in. And he goes, wouldn't that take a long time? And I go, yes, because that's the way you had to do it. And it was wonderful. I was literally, I didn't know how to make it precise, and that was the way we used to do it.
Wow. That's so cool. Wouldn't that take a long time? Yeah. It's like, I think now people are talking about taking your time making things. That is part of the process that makes it human.
Absolutely. Yes. We all should have sketchbooks.
I love Lorik's comment. I always start in my sketchbook to throw up everything that's in my brain as quickly as I can and then move to the screen. Yes, Lorik.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. Back in my day.
Back in
Well, let's wrap up this book club for today, and thank you for those who've been joining us so far. Reminder, we do this. If we're not at a physical Type Thursday event, we're here at Type Thursday. We'll put up the slides, remind everybody of our book club schedule. So our next book, now next week, unfortunately, because of some obligations, it'll be a pre-recorded session. It will not be live, but it will go publish on next Thursday, is Don Norman's Design of Everyday Things. I'm looking forward to having that review discussion for next week. The following week is Type Thursday. It's in person, both in Phoenix and Los Angeles. And remember, Type Thursday can be anywhere in the world. There's been over 20 chapters around the world. If you don't have a chapter, or you did before and went into hiatus, you're always welcome to start a new chapter and bring back Type Thursday in person. At in-person events, there's Type Crits, where 3 presenters of diverse work shown share their work in progress letter forms, basically from branding to lettering to type design, and they get engaged and candid feedback from the audience that improve their letter forms and build friends who love letter forms together. After that Type Thursday, we're jumping into Inside Paragraphs. And then we have a nice mix of UX UI work with Don't Make Me Think. And then we're going in, and then we're jumping into some real nitty gritty typography stuff with Elements of Typographic Style and Grid Systems and Graphic Design. So we have an action pack, basically 5 weeks, or 4 weeks actually. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4. We have 4 weeks after our Type Thursday. So we have a lot going on. Don't forget that you can always join the Type Thursday Book Club. Join our Slack, sign in our Google form. You can introduce yourselves. We'd love to have you hang out with us. And you can read the book along with us. And if you join our calls enough, who knows? You might be able to join in on us live on the Type Thursday Book Club. And last note, like I said, in 2 weeks, we have our Type Thursday Los Angeles and Phoenix events, March 26th. Matheo, how are things going in the Los Angeles chapter?
Amazing. We're super excited for the work that's going to be shown. We've got someone who has been a loyalist of Type Thursday for many years who's going to be a presenter coming up. Her work is very fun, and she's a comedic presenter every time she presents. So get your tickets, follow us on Instagram, scan the QR code there, and we'll see you in person March 26th at Typecraft in Pasadena. And shout out to David Mays for hosting us at Typecraft.
Yes, and we'll be also on March 26th at Dialogue, downtown Phoenix. We have 3 great speakers, potentially 4, but they'll be presenting together. But we've been growing, and we've been really happy to contribute our typography passion with Phoenix, and I can't wait to do it again on March 26th.
This has been the Type Thursday Book Club with Thomas, Matheo, and Michael. Thank you for everyone watching so far and for all our people commenting as well on our live stream. Be sure again to follow us on our social media. Subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't done so yet. And everyone have a great night and maybe draw some letters. Thanks, everybody.
Good night, everyone.
Thank you, Andrea. Thank you, Lorik.